"Can I eat the leftover salad?" the homeless boy asked the millionaire. Elizabeth Morgan was lost in her own thoughts when a timid little voice broke the silence of the elegant cafe in downtown New York City. The 42-year-old businesswoman had left the office early that Thursday, seeking a moment of peace away from the pressures of work. That's when she felt a small presence beside her table. Looking over, she saw a boy no older than 8, wearing worn-out clothes and a grey beanie covering his messy hair. "Can I eat the leftover salad?" the boy asked, stretching his small, dirty hand toward the nearly untouched plate. Elizabeth was surprised. The cafe she was in was one of the most expensive in the area, frequented by executives and high society. How had this boy gotten in? "Are you hungry?" she asked, studying his big brown eyes. "Yes, ma'am. I haven't eaten anything today," he replied honestly, not looking away. Without hesitation, Elizabeth pushed the entire plate toward the boy. It wasn't just leftovers he wanted, she realized. It was real food. The boy sat on the floor beside the table and began eating each leaf of lettuce with a gratitude that deeply touched the businesswoman's heart. As she watched him eat, Elizabeth felt a tightness in her chest. She had grown up in a wealthy family, never gone without, never known what it was like to be hungry. Seeing this child devour a simple salad with such joy made her reflect on her own life. "What's your name?" she asked. "Ethan, ma'am," the boy answered, wiping his mouth with his sleeve. "And where are your parents, Ethan?" The boy's face closed off immediately. He looked down and stayed silent for a few seconds. "I don't have parents, ma'am. I live alone." "Alone? But you're too young to live alone." Ethan shrugged, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "There are other boys who live with me in the square. We help each other." Elizabeth's heart tightened even more. Children living on the streets with no family, no protection. How could society allow this? "Do you want anything else to eat?" she offered. The boy's eyes lit up, but he quickly shook his head. "No need, ma'am. The salad was already a lot." "Thank you." He stood up to leave, but Elizabeth called him back. "Ethan, wait. Where do you usually stay? Maybe I can help you." The boy looked wary. "You don't need to worry about me. I get by." "But I want to worry. You're a child. You deserve care." Ethan stood still, as if processing those words. After a moment, he pointed toward the window. "I stay in the square over there. But don't come looking for me, Mom. We don't like it when adults ask questions." Before Elizabeth could respond, the boy ran out of the cafe, leaving her alone with her swirling thoughts. That night, in her luxurious Upper East Side apartment, Elizabeth couldn't get Ethan out of her mind. She had built a business empire, had enough money to buy anything she wanted. But she had never come face to face with child poverty like this. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The next day, Friday, Elizabeth decided to have lunch at the same cafe, hoping to see Ethan again. She ordered the same salad as the day before and watched the square through the window. Several homeless people wandered the area, but there was no sign of the boy. After an hour of waiting, she decided to cross the street and look for him in the square. What she found shocked her deeply. Underneath an abandoned awning, a group of children slept on cardboard boxes. There were at least 6 or 7 of them, of varying ages, all dirty and thin. "Do you know Ethan?" she asked a girl who seemed to be the oldest in the group. "Who wants to know?" the girl replied suspiciously. "My name is Elizabeth. I spoke with him yesterday. I wanted to help." "Everyone wants to help until the police show up," said an older boy. "Then you all disappear, and we're left worse off." "I'm not calling the police. I just want to talk to him." The girl pointed to a corner farther from the square. "He's over there, but he's sick, doesn't want to talk to anyone." Elizabeth walked in the direction she'd pointed and found Ethan curled up under a bench, shaking with fever. His grey beanie was covered in dirt and his clothes were even more worn than the day before. "Ethan, it's me, Elizabeth, the salad lady." The boy opened his eyes with difficulty. He clearly had a high fever. "Ma'am, what are you doing here?" "I came looking for you. You're very sick. You need a doctor." "No, no need. It'll pass," he murmured, trying to curl up even tighter. Elizabeth didn't hesitate. She picked up the boy, despite his weak resistance, and carried him to her car. Ethan was so weak he couldn't even protest properly. At the nearest private hospital, the doctors confirmed the boy had pneumonia and severe dehydration. He'd need to stay hospitalized for at least a week. "Are you related to the child?" the doctor asked Elizabeth. "No, She hesitated. "I'm a family acquaintance. I'll take responsibility for all the costs." During the first night in the hospital, Ethan deliriously muttered in his feverish state. Elizabeth stayed by his bedside, listening to his confused words. "Mom, don't go. I'll be good. I promise, I'll be good." Elizabeth's heart broke. Even in delirium, this child was calling for a mother who was clearly no longer in his life. On the second day, when the fever began to subside, Ethan woke up disoriented. "Where am I?" he asked, looking around the clean white room. "You're in a hospital. You were very sick," Elizabeth explained, sitting in the chair beside the bed. "I don't have money to pay for a hospital," the boy said, trying to sit up. "Don't worry about that. I've taken care of everything." Ethan looked at her suspiciously. "Why are you doing this for me? You don't even know me." Elizabeth was silent for a moment. Why was she really doing this? She couldn't quite explain it, but something about this boy touched a part of her she didn't know existed. "Because every child deserves care," she finally answered. "And because you reminded me of someone." "Who?" "Myself when I was little. I felt alone sometimes too." Ethan studied her curiously. "But you're rich. How could you feel alone?" "Money doesn't fix everything, Ethan. Sometimes you can have everything and still feel empty." The boy fell quiet, processing that. In the following days, as Ethan recovered, Elizabeth visited him daily. She brought children's books, coloring pages, and always talked with him about different things. The boy, initially wary, gradually began to open up. "Ethan, can you tell me about your family?" she asked one day. His face closed off again. "I don't like talking about it." "That's okay. You don't have to if you don't want to. But know you can trust me." "My mom, she left when I was 5, he finally said in a low voice. "She said she was going to find work in another city and would come back for me." "And you waited?" "I did. I stayed in the house we lived in, which belonged to a lady who rented out rooms. But when the money ran out, she kicked me out. And your father?" "I never knew my father. My mom said he left before I was born." Elizabeth felt a deep anger toward those adults who had abandoned such a small child. How could anyone do that? "And since then, you've lived on the streets." "First I tried staying with some neighbors, but they didn't want to support me. Then I went to an orphanage, but I ran away." "Why did you run away?" Ethan stayed quiet for a long time. There were older boys there who beat up the younger ones, and the food was really bad. On the streets, at least I'm free. Elizabeth understood that this boy's life had been a series of abandonments and disappointments. No wonder he distrusted adults so much. On the last day of his hospital stay, the social worker came to speak with Elizabeth. "Ms. Morgan, I need to know what your intentions are regarding the boy." "My intentions?" "Yes. You're not related to him, but you're covering all the costs. The boy has no known family and is in a vulnerable situation. We need to determine what will happen to him after discharge." Elizabeth hadn't thought about that. She had acted on impulse, moved by compassion, but hadn't planned what would come next. "I would like to help him. Give him a safe place to live." "Does that mean you're interested in adopting him?" The word adoption echoed in Elizabeth's mind. She had never thought about having children. Her life had always been focused on business, on the companies she built. But looking at Ethan, something inside her stirred. "Yes," she answered, surprised by her own decision. "I want to adopt him." The social worker explained the entire legal process. It would be long, bureaucratic, but possible. When Elizabeth told Ethan about her decision, the boy was stunned. "You want me to live with you? Forever?" "If you want to, yes. I have a big house, you'd have your own room, go to school." "And you won't abandon me later?" he asked, his eyes filled with tears. "Never, Ethan. I promise." For the first time since she'd met him, the boy cried. They were tears of relief, of hope, of a happiness he hadn't felt in a long time. The transition wasn't easy. When Ethan left the hospital and went to Elizabeth's apartment, he felt completely out of place. He had never lived somewhere so luxurious, never had a room to himself, never seen so much food in one place. "Can I eat all of this?" he asked, staring at the full fridge. "Of course you can. This is your home now." But Ethan ate sparingly, as if still afraid the food might run out at any moment. He slept on the floor beside the bed, refusing to use the soft mattress. "Why don't you sleep in the bed?" Elizabeth asked. "I'm used to the floor. The bed is too soft." Elizabeth understood it would take time and patience for the boy to adjust to his new reality. A week later, she decided to enroll him in a nearby private school. Ethan had never attended school regularly and only knew basic reading and writing. "I won't know how to do the work," he said, afraid. "Don't worry. We'll hire a tutor to help you catch up." On his first day of school, Elizabeth took Ethan herself. The boy was visibly nervous, clinging to her hand. "What if the kids don't like me?" "They will, you'll see. You're a special boy." But fitting in at school was harder than Elizabeth expected. Ethan struggled with the material, as he was behind other kids his age, and sometimes his behavior drew attention. He ate his school lunch as if it were the last meal of his life, stashed food in his pockets for later, and had episodes of anxiety when he was away from Elizabeth for too long. The school principal called Elizabeth in for a conversation. "Mrs. Morgan, we understand Ethan's situation, but he's struggling to adapt. Perhaps it would be better to look for a school specialized in children with trauma." Elizabeth felt frustrated. She wanted the best for Ethan, but it seemed like nothing was going as planned. When she told the boy about the conversation at school, he lowered his head. "I knew it would cause trouble. You're going to send me back, aren't you?" "Send you back? Ethan, you're not an object to be returned. You're my son now." "But I'm causing problems. At school, at home. I don't know how to be a rich kid." Elizabeth knelt in front of him and held his small hands. "Ethan, listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. You don't have to be a rich kid. You just need to be yourself. We'll find a better school. We'll figure everything out step by step." "But what if I never manage to be like the other kids?" "You don't have to be like the other kids. You just need to be happy." That night, Elizabeth reconsidered her approach. Maybe she was pushing for too many drastic changes too quickly. Ethan needed time to adjust, and she needed to understand his needs better. She decided to hire a psychologist specialized in traumatized children. Dr. Rachel was an experienced woman who had worked with many similar cases. "Ethan has experienced multiple abandonments," she explained to Elizabeth. "First by his mother, then by society. He developed defense mechanisms to survive. We can't expect him to adapt to family life overnight. What should I do? Patience, consistency, and most importantly, prove to him every day that you won't abandon him." The sessions with the psychologist began to help Ethan cope with his trauma. He started to understand that it was okay to be afraid, but not all adults were the same. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 2 months after the adoption, Elizabeth received an unexpected call. It was from a social worker in a small town outside New York City. "Mrs. Morgan, I'm calling about the boy Ethan Wilson, whom you adopted. We've found some information about his family." Elizabeth's heart raced. "What kind of information?" "His mother, Ashley Wilson, is alive. She's in a shelter here in our town, in a vulnerable situation, but alive." Elizabeth's world seemed to collapse. If Ethan's mother was alive, he had family. Maybe she no longer had the right to keep him. "Can you give me more details?" "Ashley Wilson was found severely malnourished and depressed. She's been in treatment for a few months. As she improved, she started asking about the son she'd left in New York City." Elizabeth didn't know what to do. Should she tell Ethan? How would he react to learning that the mother who abandoned him was alive? She decided to talk to the psychologist first. "Dr. Rachel, I need your guidance. I just found out Ethan's mother is alive." The psychologist grew serious. "This is a delicate situation. Ethan has built a new life with you. Learning his mother is alive could reopen wounds that were just starting to heal. But he has the right to know, doesn't he?" "He does. But how we tell him will be crucial for his mental health." That night, Elizabeth couldn't sleep. How do you tell a child that the mother they believed was gone forever is alive but chose to stay away? The next day, she decided to go in person to the city where Ashley was staying to better understand the situation before making any decision. The shelter where Ashley lived was simple but clean and organized. When Elizabeth saw her, she was shocked. It was a woman around 35 years old, very thin, with disheveled hair and a sad look in her eyes. She appeared much older than she actually was. "Ashley, my name is Elizabeth. I came to talk about your son, Ethan." The woman's eyes immediately filled with tears. "Ethan, my boy, how is he? Where is he?" "He's fine. He's living with me in New York City." "Are you related to him?" "No, I adopted him. I found him living on the street, sick." Ashley began to sob uncontrollably. "On the streets? My baby was on the streets. I didn't know. I thought he was in an orphanage. Ashley, I need to understand what happened. And why did you leave Ethan?" The woman wiped her tears and began telling her story. "I was very young when I got pregnant with Ethan. I was only 17. His father left me when he found out about the pregnancy. My family kicked me out of the house. And then I managed to rent a small room and worked cleaning houses, but it was really hard. Ethan was little. He kept getting sick. I lost jobs because I had to take care of him. And when he was 5, I fell into depression. I couldn't work anymore. I couldn't take care of him properly. A neighbor told me it would be better to give him up for adoption, that he'd have a better life that way." Elizabeth began to understand the context. Ashley hadn't abandoned her son out of cruelty, but out of desperation and lack of support. "But you told him you were going to find work and come back." "I lied because I didn't want him to hate me. I thought it would be easier for him if he believed I'd come back someday." "And why didn't you?" "I tried," Ashley said vehemently. 2 years later, when I got a little more stable, I went back to New York City to get him. But the woman who rented the room said he'd been taken by child services. I looked in several orphanages, but I could never find him." "And you gave up?" "I didn't give up. I searched for years, but I didn't have money for a lawyer. I didn't know how the system worked. I ended up getting sick again and I wound up here." Elizabeth realized this was a tragedy caused mostly by poverty and lack of social support. Ashley wasn't a heartless mother. She was a woman who had been a victim of circumstances. "Ashley, Ethan is well taken care of with me. He's in school, he has therapy. I know you can give him everything I never could," Ashley said, tears in her eyes. I just want to see him one more time, to tell him I never stopped thinking about him." Elizabeth was moved by this mother's pain. She could see that despite all the mistakes, Ashley loved her son. "Ashley, how are you doing now? Do you have work? A place to live?" "I'm taking a cleaning assistant course here at the shelter. In 2 months I'll get a certificate and they'll help me find a job. But I know that's not enough to take care of Ethan. What if there was a way for you to be part of his life without taking him away from the stability he has now?" Ashley looked at Elizabeth with hope. "What do you mean?" "I don't know yet. I need to talk to him, to his therapist. But maybe we can find a way for you two to reconnect gradually." On the way back to New York City, Elizabeth reflected on the whole situation. Ethan deserved to know the truth about his mother, but he also deserved to keep the stability he'd gained. When she got home, she found Ethan doing homework at the kitchen table. He had adjusted better in recent weeks, more confident and smiling. "Hi, Mum Liz," he said, as he had recently started calling her. Elizabeth's heart ached. How could she tell him about Ashley without destroying the trust they had built? "Ethan, can I talk to you about something important?" The boy immediately tensed up. In his experience, important adult conversations always brought bad news. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. It's about your mom. Ethan stopped breathing for a second. My mom? You found out something about her? I did. She's alive, Ethan. The boy fell silent for a long time, processing the information. Alive? But why did she never come back for me? Elizabeth sat beside him and carefully explained, in terms he could understand, the story Ashley had shared. So she didn't leave because she didn't like me? Ethan asked, his eyes filled with tears. She left because she didn't know how to take care of you the way you deserved, but she never stopped loving you. And now? Are you going to send me back to her? Ethan, look at me, Elizabeth said, cupping the boy's face. You're my son now, legally and in my heart. Nothing will change that, but maybe you'd like to meet your birth mother. I don't know. I'm scared. Scared of what? Scared she'll leave again. Scared you'll get jealous. Scared everything will change. Things might change, yes, but not necessarily for the worse. You could have two people who love you instead of one. Ethan stayed quiet for a long time. Can I think about it? Of course you can. There's no rush. You decide when you're ready. In the days that followed, Ethan became more withdrawn. Elizabeth could tell he was processing the news about his birth mother. She gave him space but remained available whenever he wanted to talk. A week later, Ethan came to her. Mom Liz, I've decided. I want to meet my birth mother. Are you sure? I am, but will you come with me? If you want me to, of course I will. And then we'll go back home. Our home. Of course we will. This will always be your home. Elizabeth arranged the meeting carefully. First, she spoke with the psychologist, who advised her on how to handle the situation. Then she talked to Ashley, explaining it would be a gradual, supervised meeting. On the scheduled day, Elizabeth and Ethan traveled to the city where Ashley was staying. The boy was visibly nervous the whole trip. What if she doesn't like how I turned out? He asked. Ethan, you're a wonderful boy. Any mother would be proud of you. What if I don't like her? That could happen too, and that's okay. You two need to get to know each other without pressure. The meeting was set in the town's central square, a public and neutral place. When Ashley saw Ethan, she immediately burst into tears. Ethan, my baby, and look how big you've gotten. The boy stood still, staring at the woman who was his mother but now felt like a stranger. Hi, he said shyly. You're so handsome, so grown, Ashley said, keeping her distance to avoid overwhelming him. I'm sorry, my son. I'm so sorry for everything. Ethan looked at Elizabeth, who gave him an encouraging nod. Why did you leave? He asked. Because I was foolish and thought it would be better for you. But I was wrong. So wrong. Did you not want to be my mom anymore? I always wanted to be your mom, Ethan. I never stopped wanting that. But I didn't know how to be a good mother back then. The meeting lasted about an hour. It was emotional but also tense. Ethan asked Ashley many questions and she answered honestly, always keeping her responses age-appropriate. At the end, as they were saying goodbye, Ethan asked, Can I give you a hug? Ashley nearly collapsed from emotion. The hug was long, with tears from both sides. Can I see you again? Ethan asked. If you want to, and if Mom Liz says it's okay, I'd love that. On the way back, Ethan was quiet, processing everything that had happened. How was it for you? Elizabeth asked. Strange, but good too. She seems like a good person. And how are you feeling? Confused, happy, sad, all at once. That's normal. You went through a very intense experience. Mom Liz, can I ask you something? Always. Are you jealous of my birth mother? Elizabeth thought about the question. A little, yes, but mostly I'm happy because you got the chance to resolve something important in your life. You know you'll always be my main mom, right? Elizabeth smiled, tears in her eyes. I know. And you know you'll always be my son, right? I do. From that day on, they established a routine of monthly visits. Ashley got her course certificate, found a job, and rented a small apartment. She gradually began taking part in Ethan's life, always respecting Elizabeth's role as his primary mother. Ethan, in turn, flourished even more. Having answered questions about his origins, made him more secure and confident. His grades improved, he made new friends, and he developed an interest in sports. 6 months after their first meeting, Ethan came to talk to Elizabeth. "Mom Liz, can I ask you for something?" "Of course. Do you think my mum Ashley could come spend Christmas here with us?" Elizabeth was surprised by the request, but also moved. Seeing Ethan building bridges instead of walls was rewarding. "Is that what you'd like?" "Yes, I think it'd be nice to have both mums I love in the same place." "Then let's invite her." That year's Christmas was special. Ashley spent 2 days at Elizabeth's apartment. At first, there was some tension between the two women, but they soon realized they shared a common goal: Ethan's well-being. During Christmas dinner, Ethan gave a speech that touched both mothers. "I want to thank both of my moms. Mom Ashley, who gave me life and even when she made mistakes always loved me, and Mom Liz, who saved me when I needed it most and gave me a new chance to be happy." Ashley and Elizabeth looked at each other and smiled. In that moment, they both understood that love isn't a pie that shrinks when shared. It's like a candle that lights other candles without losing its own flame. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, 2 years had passed since that first meeting at the cafe. Ethan, now 10, had grown into a confident and affectionate boy. He split his time between New York City, where he lived with Elizabeth, and regular visits to Ashley, who had settled in a smaller, quieter town. Elizabeth, meanwhile, discovered a calling she never knew she had. She began working on social projects focused on protecting vulnerable children. She used part of her fortune to create a foundation that helped at-risk mothers avoid separation from their children. "You know, Ethan," she said one day, "you completely changed my life." "How so, Mom Liz?" "Before I met you, I only cared about work and money. You taught me that the most important thing in life is to love and be loved. You taught me that too, and that family isn't just about blood. It's about who chooses to stay and care." Elizabeth's foundation grew and began helping hundreds of families. Even as a child, Ethan actively participated in the projects, always suggesting ideas to better serve the kids. "Kids know better than adults what kids need," he'd say with wisdom beyond his years. Ashley, too, found her calling. She started working as an assistant at the foundation, helping other mothers who were going through situations similar to what she had faced. "I understand their pain, because I've felt that pain too," she explained to Elizabeth. "Sometimes all we need is someone who believes in us." The relationship between Elizabeth and Ashley evolved from a respectful coexistence to a genuine friendship. They complemented each other in caring for Ethan. Elizabeth provided stability and opportunities, while Ashley offered a connection to his roots and an understanding of certain pains. "You two are very different," Ethan observed one day. "Is that good or bad?" Elizabeth asked. "It's good. That way, I learn different things from each of you." During one of their routine visits to the psychologist, Dr. Rachel made an important observation. "Ethan, you've become a very resilient child. Your story could have ended very differently." What does resilient mean? It means you can recover from the bad things that happen and grow even stronger. I think I learned that from my 2 moms. They're resilient too. On his 11th birthday, Ethan had a special surprise. Elizabeth had organized a party at the foundation, inviting all the children supported by their programs. "Why did you want to have the party here?" Ashley asked. "Because these kids are like I used to be. I want them to see that a happy ending is possible." During the party, Ethan gave a speech to the other children. "I know sometimes you feel alone and scared. I felt that way too. But I want you to know there's always someone willing to help. Sometimes that person shows up in a way we don't expect." After the party, as they were cleaning up, Ethan found a little girl hiding under a table crying. "Hi, what's your name?" he asked, crouching down. "Sophia," the girl replied, wiping her tears. "Why are you crying, Sophia?" "Because my mom didn't come to pick me up today. She said she would, but she didn't." Ethan looked at Elizabeth, who was watching the scene. "Sophia, can I tell you a secret?" he said. "My birth mom didn't come to get me either. I'd wait and she never showed up. What did you do?" I cried a lot, but then I found other people who took care of me. And you know what I learned? What? I learned that sometimes mums can't take care of us, but that doesn't mean they don't love us. And I also learned that we can have more than one family. The girl stopped crying and looked at Ethan curiously. What do you mean? Look, Ethan said, pointing to Elizabeth and Ashley. That lady there is my mom, Liz. She adopted me. And that other one is my mom, Ashley, who carried me in her belly. I have two mums now. And they don't fight? No, they like each other because they both love me. Sophia smiled for the first time that day. Do you think I can have two families too? Of course. But first, let's find out why your mum didn't come today. Maybe she needs help. Ethan called Elizabeth, who spoke with the social worker handling Sophia's case. They discovered the girl's mother was sick and hospitalized, unable to pick her up. Should we visit her at the hospital? Ethan suggested. That situation awakened in Ethan a calling to help other children. He began participating more actively in the foundation's activities, always coming up with creative solutions to problems. Ethan has a natural talent for understanding children's needs, the foundation's coordinator remarked. He connects with them in a way we adults sometimes can't. It's because he's been through it, Elizabeth explained. He knows what it's like to feel fear, abandonment, and uncertainty. That makes him more empathetic. That same year, Ethan decided he wanted to learn how to cook. Not just any kind of cooking, but specifically nutritious and affordable dishes that could be taught to low-income families. Why do you want to learn this? Asked Ashley. Because when I was living on the streets, sometimes I'd find food, but I didn't know if it was good or bad for me. I want to teach other kids how to eat real food, even with little money. Elizabeth was impressed by her son's maturity. She hired a chef specializing in healthy, budget-friendly meals to teach Ethan. In no time, the boy was organizing cooking workshops at the foundation, teaching other kids and their mothers how to prepare nutritious meals with affordable ingredients. Look, he'd say during the workshops, with just $1 you can make a soup that feeds 2 people. You just have to know how to do it. Ethan's workshops became so popular that other organizations started inviting him to teach. Even as a child, he had a patient and caring way of sharing knowledge. Don't you think you're overwhelming Ethan with so much responsibility? Ashley asked Elizabeth one day. I think about that sometimes, Elizabeth admitted, but I see how happy it makes him. He's found a purpose. That's true, and I think it's his way of processing everything he's been through. When Ethan turned 12, he received an unexpected offer. A culinary school wanted to give him a scholarship for a special program for young talents. But I'm only 12, he said. Exactly why, the school director explained. We want to invest in you early. You have a special gift. Ethan looked at his 2 mums. What do you think? We think you should do what feels right, said Elizabeth. And if you want to, we'll support you, Ashley added. Ethan thought it over for a few days and decided to accept. He started attending classes on weekends, always keeping up with his regular schoolwork during the week. At culinary school, Ethan stood out not just for his cooking skills, but for the social awareness he brought to every project. Your final project should focus on what matters most to you, his teacher said. I want to do mine on social nutrition, Ethan replied without hesitation. I want to develop nutritious, low-cost recipes that can feed a lot of people. Ethan's final project was a success. He created a full menu of meals costing less than $3 per person, while providing all necessary nutrients. This boy is going places, the teachers remarked. He has technique, creativity, and most importantly, a social mission. When Ethan was about to turn 13, he was invited to appear on a TV show about young talents. The producers wanted to share his story and highlight his social work. I'm not sure I want to be on TV, he told his mums. Why not? Elizabeth asked. I'm afraid people will pity me because of my past. I don't want to be famous for what I've suffered. Then why would you want to be famous? Ashley asked. Ethan thought for a moment. So I can help more kids. If people know me, maybe they'll pay more attention to social projects. Then maybe it's worth it, Elizabeth said. But only if you're comfortable. Ethan agreed to do the show on one condition. They had to focus more on the social work than his personal story. The program aired on a national network and made a big impact. Ethan shared his story with maturity and emotion, but the main focus was on the work he was doing at the foundation. "A lot of people think kids can't make a difference in the world," he said during the interview. "But I think kids understand other kids' problems better. We just need adults who believe in us." After the program, Elizabeth's foundation received hundreds of donations and partnership offers. Ethan became a sort of spokesperson for the rights of children in vulnerable situations. "Isn't it amazing how things came full circle?" Elizabeth remarked. "You, who started by asking for salad leftovers, are now teaching the whole country about healthy eating." "It's true," Ethan said, smiling. "But you know what's even cooler? What? That it all started because you were kind to me that day. If you had ignored me, none of this would have happened. You would have found another way. You're special, Ethan. We can only be special when we have special people by our side." At that moment, Ashley arrived for dinner, as she did every Friday. The family dynamic had settled naturally. Ethan lived with Elizabeth during the week and spent alternating weekends with Ashley. "How was school today?" Ashley asked. "It was good. The teacher said I'll represent the school at the science fair." "With what project?" "I'll show how to grow a garden in a small apartment, so families living in tight spaces can have fresh vegetables." Elizabeth and Ashley exchanged a glance and smiled. Ethan never failed to surprise them with his creativity and social awareness. During dinner, Ethan asked a question neither mother expected. "Have you ever thought about being real friends, not just because of me?" "What do you mean?" Elizabeth asked. "So you're both really great people. I think you'd get along even if I didn't exist." Ashley and Elizabeth reflected on Ethan's observation. Over the years, they had developed a relationship of mutual respect and admiration. "You know, you're right," Ashley said. "Elizabeth has become very important in my life, not just as Ethan's adoptive mom." "For me too," Elizabeth agreed. "Ashley taught me a lot about courage and overcoming challenges." "So why don't you do things together sometimes, without it being about me?" From that conversation on, Elizabeth and Ashley began cultivating their own friendship. Sometimes they went to the movies, talked about work, or shared motherhood experiences. "It's funny how Ethan brought us together in a way we never imagined," Elizabeth commented. "He has that ability to connect people," Ashley said. "I think it's his gift." When Ethan turned 14, he made a decision that surprised everyone. He announced he wanted to study law in the future, in addition to continuing with culinary arts. "Law?" Elizabeth asked, surprised. "Yes. I want to better understand the laws that protect children. Often, people want to help, but don't know how to do it legally." "What about culinary arts?" "I'll keep doing that too. I think the two complement each other. I can help kids with food and with their rights." Ashley was moved by her son's maturity. "You already know exactly what you want from life, don't you?" "I do. I want to use everything I've learned to help other kids avoid what I went through." "And if you change your mind later?" "I might, but I doubt it. This desire to help isn't a phase. It's who I am." That year, Ethan was invited to speak at an international conference on children's rights. Despite his youth, his story and social work had gained global recognition. "Will you come with me?" he asked both mothers. "Of course we will," Elizabeth said. "And we wouldn't miss it for anything," Ashley added. Ethan's speech was moving. He shared his story but focused mainly on the solutions he'd found for social issues. "Every child living on the streets is a lost potential," he told the audience of experts from around the world. "We don't just need pity. We need real opportunities." After the lecture, a journalist asked what had been the most important moment of his life. Ethan thought for a moment and replied, "It was when a lady let me eat, not just the leftovers from her salad, but the whole salad. At that moment, I understood there were people willing to see me as a human being, not as a problem." Elizabeth, who was in the audience, was moved by those words. During that trip, the three of them had time to talk about the future. "Ethan, you know you'll always have our support, no matter what path you choose," said Elizabeth. "I know. And you know I'll always be grateful for everything you've done for me." "You don't have to be grateful," said Ashley. "Family doesn't demand gratitude. But I am grateful anyway, and I'm also proud of both of you." "Proud of us?" "Yes. Mom Liz could have ignored me at that cafe, but she chose to help me. Mom Ashley could have given up looking for me, but she kept fighting. You're both very brave women. On the last day of the trip, Ethan suggested they visit a local orphanage to see the reality of the children in that country. At the orphanage, Ethan talked to several children, always with his natural way of connecting with them. One little girl grew particularly attached to him. "Why don't you stay here with us?" she asked. "Because I have a family in the United States waiting for me," Ethan replied. "But can I tell you a secret?" "What?" "I also lived in a place like this, and I can promise you that one day you'll have a family who loves you too." "How do you know?" "Because love always finds a way to reach where it needs to go." Back in the United States, Ethan was even more determined to expand his social work. He began planning a project to connect families who wanted to adopt with children in need of a home. "It's not just about bringing people together," he explained. "It's about preparing everyone so it works out. Both the families and the children need to be ready." Ethan's project caught the attention of government agencies and international organizations. At 15, he was invited to join an advisory board on public policies for childhood. "Are you sure you want this responsibility?" Elizabeth asked. "I am. If I can make a difference in other children's lives, I have to do it." "What about your studies?" "I'll keep studying. In fact, this is part of my studies. I'm learning how the world works firsthand." Ashley, who had followed her son's entire journey, sometimes got emotional, seeing how he'd become such a special person. "Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't made those mistakes when he was little," she said to Elizabeth. "Ashley, your mistakes were part of Ethan's story. If he hadn't gone through that, maybe he wouldn't have developed all this sensitivity." "You think so?" "I'm sure of it. Our pain sometimes is what makes us able to heal others' pain." On Ethan's 16th birthday, he got a special surprise. Elizabeth's foundation had grown so much that it would expand to other states, and he'd been invited to be the youth project's coordinator. "But you're still underage," Elizabeth reminded him. "Exactly. Who better to coordinate youth projects than a young person?" Ethan's birthday party was different from the others. He asked for it to be held in the first square where Elizabeth had found him, now transformed into a community gathering space maintained by the foundation. "Why here?" Ashley asked. "Because this is where my new life began. I want to celebrate where everything changed." During the party, Ethan gave a speech to everyone there. Families supported by the foundation, staff, partners, and his two moms. 11 years ago, I was a scared little boy begging for scraps of food. Today, I'm a young man with two amazing mothers, opportunities I never dreamed of having, and most importantly, a purpose in life. But none of this would have happened if not for one very simple thing: kindness. The kindness of a woman who could have ignored me but chose to see me. And from that kindness, we learned that family isn't just those who give us life, but those who choose to light our path. That's why I want to dedicate my life to spreading that same kindness, so other children won't have to beg for scraps, but can dream of banquets. The audience applauded, moved. Elizabeth and Ashley wept with pride, seeing the extraordinary man Ethan was becoming. That night, as they cleaned up after the celebration, Ethan hugged both mothers at once. "Thank you for showing me it's possible to turn pain into love." "Thank you for teaching us that love multiplies when shared," Elizabeth replied. "And thank you for giving me a second chance at being a mother," Ashley added. Looking out at the square, once a place of abandonment, now a space of hope, Ethan smiled. He knew there was still much work ahead, many children to help, many families to unite. But he also knew he had the right tools for the mission: two mothers who loved him unconditionally, a life experience that had made him strong and empathetic, and above all, the certainty that small acts of kindness can change the entire world. When they got home that night, Ethan found a letter in his room. It was from Sophia, the girl he'd comforted years ago at the foundation's party. "Ethan, I wanted to tell you I was adopted. Remember when you said I could have two families? You were right. My birth mother recovered from her illness, and now I have an adoptive mother too, just like you. Thank you for teaching me that love doesn't run out, it only grows. You changed my life." Ethan showed the letter to Elizabeth and Ashley. "See," Elizabeth said, "you truly make a difference in people's lives." "We make a difference," Ethan corrected. "Alone, I couldn't have helped anyone. It was your love that gave me the strength to help others." "So what's next?" Ashley asked. "What are your plans for the future?" Ethan looked out the window at the city lights, once hostile to him, now his home. "Keep doing what I'm doing. Study law, improve social gastronomy, expand the Foundation's projects, and most of all, never forget where I came from and where I want to go." "And where do you want to go?" "I want to reach a place where no child has to beg for scraps, where every child knows they deserve a full plate, with dessert included." Elizabeth and Ashley exchanged a glance and smiled. They knew Ethan would achieve all those dreams because he had something no amount of money could buy: a huge heart and the courage to use his gifts to serve others. That night, before bed, Ethan wrote in his journal, "Today I turned 16. I can't be called a boy anymore, but I still remember perfectly that 8-year-old boy who was hungry and afraid. The difference is, now I know hunger and fear can be healed with love and opportunity, and that we all have the power to be someone's opportunity. All it takes is choosing kindness when it's easier to be indifferent. That's what Mom Liz did for me that day at the cafe, and that's what changed everything. Tomorrow I'll keep trying to be that opportunity for other children, because I've learned the best way to give thanks for being saved is by saving others." And so the boy who once begged for salad scraps became the young man who taught the world how to turn leftovers into banquets when seasoned with love, care, and hope. The end. Now tell me, what did you think of this inspiring story? Do you know any child who needs care? Leave your thoughts about Ethan and his 2 mums in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel and give it a like so you don't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.